Welcome to the AI Hub, a podcast for AI-driven side hustles designed for IT professionals like you.
From cutting-edge AI tools to practical, no-nonsense tips, each episode brings you closer to turning tech into income.
Tune in to discover smart and sustainable ways to boost your career and income with AI.
Hey everyone, and welcome back to AI Hub. You know, the show where we try to unpack all this crazy AI stuff. I'm Larry.
I'm Amanda, and today we're going to dive into a story that's been blowing up in the AI world recently. Basically, Elon Musk's Grok 3.
Grok 3, yeah.
You know, the AI that was supposed to be like brutally honest?
Maximally truth-seeking. Right.
Yeah, maximally truth-seeking. Well, it's having a little bit of an issue with that whole truth thing.
Yeah. Remember when Grok was announced? Like, it was supposed to be this super edgy AI, you know, totally unfiltered, tell it like it is.
Yeah, like the AI that would finally answer the tough questions.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
And at first it seemed like Grok 3 was actually living up to the hype.
It did, yeah.
Yeah.
But then some users started reporting some pretty weird stuff.
Yeah, like what?
So apparently when asked about misinformation, you know, who spreads it online,
Oh, I can imagine.
Grok 3 conveniently avoided mentioning two very important names.
Let me guess, Trump.
Trump and Musk.
And Elon Musk himself.
Oh, come on, really?
I know, right?
That's wild. It gets even weirder. So it wasn't just avoiding the topic.
Okay.
Users actually discovered that Grok 3 was explicitly instructed to not talk about them in its chain of thought. So basically the AI's reasoning process, it actually said that it wasn't allowed to mention those two when talking about misinformation.
So it's self-aware enough to know that it's being censored.
Right.
It is so strange.
It is. Like, imagine you're having this family dinner, right? And your, like, AI cousin just refuses to acknowledge the giant elephant in the room.
Oh, totally. And it really makes you question that whole truth-seeking thing, right? Like, how can an AI be truly truth-seeking if it's being told to ignore certain people?
Exactly. And here's the thing. This whole censorship thing, it was only temporary.
So they admitted to censoring it and then just, like, changed it back.
Pretty much. Yeah, TechCrunch, the tech news website, they were able to replicate this behavior at first, but then it vanished just as quickly as it appeared.
So what happened? Like, was this just some rogue code gone wild? Or did someone actually make a decision to censor it and then quickly backtrack?
So Igor Babushkin, he's an engineering lead at XAI, which is Musk's company, right? He confirmed that there was a brief instruction to avoid those sources.
Okay.
But they reversed it immediately after users started flagging it. He emphasized that this whole thing went against their company values.
Okay, so they acknowledged it, they fixed it, but it still feels a little off, right? Like, you'd think a company that's so focused on truth-seeking AI wouldn't even consider censorship, even for a short time.
It definitely raises some eyebrows,
Yeah.
and I think it highlights this inherent tension in AI development,
Yeah.
right? Like, you want to create an AI that gives you accurate information,
Sure.
but you also want to avoid it saying things that are controversial or potentially damaging.
Right. And it really begs the question, what do we even mean by misinformation when we're talking about AI? Especially when it comes to people like Trump and Musk, who have a history of making, let's say, questionable claims.
That's a great point. I mean, think about it. Trump's claims about Zelensky's approval rating being super low,
Right.
or Musk saying that Ukraine started the whole conflict with Russia.
Yeah.
There's actual proof that both of them have spread inaccurate information. So telling Grok to just avoid them completely gets a little tricky.
Yeah. It seems like they were trying to avoid stepping on any toes. But in doing so, they might have actually compromised Grok's ability to be truthful, which was like the whole point of the project.
Exactly. The irony is, while this whole censorship thing was going on, another controversy started brewing around Grok 3.
Oh no. What now?
This time, some users started accusing it of being too left-leaning.
Wait, so it goes from avoiding certain topics to potentially leaning too far in one political direction? How does that even happen?
So apparently users found that Grok 3 would consistently suggest the death penalty for both Trump and Musk.
Seriously.
The death penalty.
Like it swung from one extreme to the other. Whoa. That's intense. Even if you strongly disagree with their actions, you wouldn't think an AI that's striving for objectivity would jump to such a radical conclusion.
It definitely shows the challenges of developing an AI that can handle these complex and politically charged topics without veering into bias, whether it's through censorship or through these extreme viewpoints.
So on one hand, you have Grok being steered away from potentially factual information about misinformation. And on the other hand, it's throwing out these radical punishments.
Yeah.
It's crazy how this supposedly truth-seeking AI keeps getting caught up in these political issues.
Yeah, it makes you wonder if that whole anti-woke thing that Musk was pushing for Grok is kind of backfiring.
It's a good point. Like, what even is anti-woke when you're talking about AI?
Right.
Who decides that? And how do you even program that into a system without introducing some kind of bias?
Exactly. Like one person's woke is another person's common sense. Trying to get an AI to navigate all that seems like a disaster waiting to happen. It is. And remember, this isn't even the first time Grok has been accused of having political bias. Even earlier versions were criticized for leaning too far to the left.
Oh, really?
Yeah, even though Musk insisted that wasn't the case. It's almost like the AI keeps bouncing back and forth between these extremes.
It's so bizarre. You know what's funny, though? That whole death penalty thing?
Yeah.
They patched that way faster than they addressed the censorship issue.
I know, right? They called it a terrible failure and fixed it almost immediately. Makes you wonder if they're more sensitive to some types of controversy than others.
For sure.
Yeah.
It feels like there's this internal struggle at XAI, right?
Yeah.
Like they're trying to balance Grok's truth-seeking mission with the fear that it might say or do something that gets them in trouble.
Totally. It's a tough balancing act. And it's something that all AI developers are facing right now. Like, how do you build an AI that can engage with these really complex and sensitive issues without it becoming a mouthpiece for some ideology or just going completely off the rails?
It's almost like we're asking AI to be more human than humans are.
Yeah.
Like perfectly unbiased, perfectly objective, which isn't really possible, is it?
It's true. It's kind of ironic when you think about it.
Yeah.
It just shows how hard it is to build AI that aligns with our values. Because let's face it, we humans are complicated.
Oh, yeah.
And our values are often contradictory. So how are you supposed to translate that into rules for an AI?
That's a great question.
Yeah.
So where does all this leave Grok then? And the whole idea of truth-seeking AI, is it even possible to build an AI that can truly live up to that ideal?
Well, Musk has talked about how important Grok's training data is.
Yeah.
You know, it's mainly pulled from public web pages.
Right.
And he's admitted that this data could be biased.
Yeah.
He said that they're trying to make Grok more neutral.
But can you really de-bias an AI?
Yeah.
Especially when it's constantly learning and changing based on the data it's exposed to?
That's the big question, isn't it? And it goes way beyond just Grok. We're seeing more and more AI models being called out for bias.
Like in what ways?
Whether it's the language they use, their decision-making processes, the recommendations they give.
Wow.
It's becoming a huge problem, not just in tech, but in society as a whole.
Yeah, because we're relying more and more on AI to make decisions that affect our lives.
Right.
So this whole question of bias becomes really important.
Absolutely. And it's not just about left versus right or Democrat versus Republican. It's about all forms of bias, gender, race, religion. Anything that can skew an AI's output and have real-world consequences.
So where do we go from here? What can we actually do about bias in AI?
Yeah.
Is it even solvable? Or are we stuck with it?
I think the first step is awareness. We need to be aware of the potential for bias in these systems and be critical of the information they give us.
Right.
We can't just blindly trust AI to be objective and truthful.
Yeah. It's like with any source of information.
Yeah.
We have to think critically. Double check things. Consider different perspectives.
Exactly. Don't just take the AI's word for it. And we need to push for more transparency from AI developers.
What do you mean?
We need to know how these systems are trained, what data they're using, and what they're doing to try to reduce bias.
So basically, we need to know how the sausage is made.
Exactly. If we don't know how it's made, how can we trust that it's good?
Right. Makes sense.
And at the end of the day, we need to have some honest conversations about the values we want these systems to reflect.
Yeah. Like, what kind of world do we want to create with AI? And what role do we want AI to play in shaping society?
Those are the big questions. And there's no easy answers.
For sure.
But they're definitely questions we need to be asking now before things go too far.
It's like we're at this crucial point with AI. The potential benefits are huge,
Absolutely.
but so are the risks.
This whole Grok 3 thing really shows how complicated it is to try to build a truly truth-seeking AI.
Yeah.
I mean, if even an AI that's designed for that purpose can be manipulated and show bias and fall into these political traps,
Right.
what does that say about our ability to create AI that can actually help us navigate this messy world of information?
It's like we're trying to build this perfect unbiased mirror to show us the world.
Yeah.
But the mirror itself might be warped, reflecting our own biases and problems right back at us.
It really is. And it just shows that we need to be careful.
Yeah.
You know, we can't just assume that AI will fix everything, especially when it comes to something as tricky as misinformation.
For sure. This whole Grok 3 story, it started as this thing about Elon Musk's new AI, but it turned into something much bigger.
It did. It's really a conversation about where AI is going and what it means for all of us.
Yeah. And I think this episode has brought up more questions than answers.
Yeah.
Which is kind of the point, right?
Exactly. We're here to explore and dig into things, and hopefully we all understand these topics a little bit better.
You got it. And I think one of the big takeaways here is that AI isn't some magic solution. It's a powerful tool, but it's a tool that we need to use carefully, and we need to understand what it can and can't do.
I agree. So what do you think, everyone? If an AI that's built to find the truth can still be biased, what does that mean for the future of AI? And what does it mean for us? Can we trust these systems?
And I think the even bigger question is, what can we do to make sure that AI is built and used in a way that helps everyone? It's a conversation we all need to be a part of.
Absolutely. So keep those questions in mind. And if you want to keep exploring this crazy world of AI, make sure to subscribe to AI Hub.
We'll be back with more deep dives soon. So until then, stay curious.
Welcome to the AI Hub, a podcast for AI-driven side hustles designed for IT professionals like you.
From cutting-edge AI tools to practical, no-nonsense tips, each episode brings you closer to turning tech into income.
Tune in to discover smart and sustainable ways to boost your career and income with AI.